There is a berry. It is small, about the size of a coffee bean, bright red, mildly sweet on its own. Nothing remarkable. You could walk past it in a West African forest and never look twice. But if you place this berry on your tongue and let it dissolve for 30 seconds, something happens that no pharmaceutical company has ever been able to replicate. No laboratory has successfully synthesized at scale, and no food manufacturer has been permitted to sell you. Your taste buds change. For the next 30 minutes to 2 hours, every sour thing you eat tastes sweet, not artificially sweet, not chemically sweet. Intensely, naturally, unmistakably sweet. A raw lemon tastes like lemonade. A lime tastes like candy. Vinegar tastes like apple juice. Grapefruit tastes like it was dipped in honey. Plain yogurt tastes like dessert. 0 calories added, 0 sugar added, 0 chemicals involved. The berry does not add sweetness to food. It rewires how your tongue interprets acid, and it does this through a single protein, a glycoprotein called miraculin. The name of this berry is Synsepalum dulcificum. The common name is the miracle berry. And in 1974, the United States Food and Drug Administration made sure you would never find it in your grocery store. The archive opens in the tropical forests of West Africa centuries before European contact. The Yoruba people of present-day Nigeria called it agbiyan. They ate it before meals, the way you might add sugar to your morning coffee, except they didn't need sugar, didn't need honey, didn't need any sweetener at all. They chewed the berry, and then they ate their fermented cornbread, their sour palm wine, their acidic stews, and everything tasted rich and sweet, across Ghana, the Congo, Cameroon, and the broader Gold Coast. Indigenous communities used the miracle berry as part of daily food culture for hundreds of years. It grew on a small evergreen shrub, roughly 5 to 15 feet tall, that produced fruit year-round in tropical conditions. No cultivation required beyond what the forest provided, no processing, no refining, no factory. You picked it, you ate it. Your food tasted sweet. The first European documentation came in 1725, when French explorer Chevalier des Marchais observed West Africans eating a small red fruit before their meals. He noted the effect, but could not explain it. The berry was formally described in Western botanical literature in 1852 by Surgeon W.F. Daniel No, who called it the miraculous berry. For over a century after that, Western science ignored it. Then, in 1968, a Japanese researcher named Kenzo Kurihara isolated the protein responsible. He named it miraculin, from the Latin word for miracle. The mechanism, as later confirmed by a landmark 2011 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS, works like this. Miraculin binds to the human sweet taste receptor, known as HT1R2, HT1R3, on the surface of your taste buds. At neutral pH, meaning when you eat something that is not acidic, miraculin sits on the receptor and does nothing. It is tasteless. It blocks nothing. It adds nothing. But the moment you eat something acidic, something sour, the pH drops. And at that lower pH, miraculin changes shape. It transforms from an inactive molecule into an active one. It becomes an agonist, a molecule that triggers the sweet receptor. Your brain receives a signal. This is sweet. And the more acidic the food, the sweeter the sensation. No sugar molecule ever enters your mouth. No calorie is consumed. No insulin is spiked. The sweetness is a perceptual event created entirely by a protein from a berry, interacting with a receptor on your tongue in response to acid. This is not folklore. This is published molecular biology. Now, here is where the story breaks. In the late 1960s, a biomedical postgraduate student named Robert Harvey encountered the miracle berry and saw something no one else had commercialized: a natural, zero-calorie, plant-based alternative to sugar that had been safely consumed for centuries. He founded a company called Miraculin, based in the United States, with the explicit goal of bringing miraculin to the American food supply. Harvey's vision was simple. If miraculin could be extracted, freeze-dried, and added to food products, it could replace sugar in everything from ice cream to soft drinks to children's snacks. Diabetics could eat sweet-tasting food without spiking their blood glucose. Obese patients could reduce caloric intake without sacrificing flavor. Children could grow up without the dental damage, metabolic disruption, and addiction patterns that refined sugar causes. An extensive toxicology study was conducted. Rats were fed massive doses of miracle berry concentrate. No adverse effects were observed, none. The product appeared to be heading toward classification, as generally recognized as safe grass, the same designation given to common foods like vinegar and baking soda. Major investors lined up: Reynolds Metals, Barclays, Prudential Insurance. Miraculin handed out miraculin sweetened ice pops to schoolchildren in Boston. The children preferred them over sugar-sweetened versions. Don Emery, Miraculin's vice president, later told the BBC, "If we had got beyond the diabetic market, we could have been a multi-billion-dollar company. We'd have displaced maybe millions of tons of sugar and lots of artificial sweeteners as well." And that sentence is the one that matters. What happened next has never been fully explained. According to Harvey and Emery, strange things began occurring around Miraculin's offices. Harvey reported being followed home from work by an unidentified car. Another vehicle was seen driving back and forth past Miraculin's headquarters, taking photographs. Then, one evening, Harvey and Emery arrived at the office late and interrupted a break-in. The intruders fled. The building's locks had not been destroyed. Someone had entered without force. Files had been ransacked, and the FDA regulatory file, Miraculin's most sensitive document, had been pulled from the cabinet and left open on the floor. Shortly after that incident, just as Miraculin was preparing to launch its product line nationally, the FDA reversed its position. In September 1974, the agency announced that miraculin would not be classified as grass. Instead, it would be designated a food additive, a classification that required years of additional testing and millions of dollars in regulatory compliance. Miraculin could not afford it. The company filed for bankruptcy. The miracle berry sweetener died. Meanwhile, in that same period, a company called G.D. Searle was pushing a synthetic chemical sweetener called aspartame through the FDA approval process. That approval was initially criticized and revoked. Then it was reapproved in 1981. The CEO of G.D. Searle at the time was Donald Rumsfeld. The artificial sweetener market in the United States today is valued at approximately $8.9 billion. The Sugar Association, the main sugar trade group, denied influencing the FDA's decision. Harvey attempted to obtain the FDA's internal files through a formal request. The documents he received were heavily redacted. The FDA's public statement, when later pressed, amounted to a shrug. They had not received further information on the safety of miraculin, and therefore it remained classified as an unapproved food additive, a fruit eaten safely for centuries by millions of people across West Africa, a protein with zero known toxicity in animal studies, a product that could have displaced sugar, aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin combined, killed by a classification change on the eve of its launch. Let the numbers speak. The global sugar market was valued at $68.23 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $121 billion by 2033. The artificial sweetener market was valued at $8.9 billion in 2025. The broader sweetener market, combining natural and artificial, was valued at $89.95 billion in 2025. Combined, the sweetener industry exceeds $150 billion annually. Now consider the other side. The World Health Organization reported that 830 million people worldwide are living with diabetes as of 2022, up from 200 million in 1990. Healthcare costs associated with diabetes are projected to surpass $1 trillion by 2045. Sugar-sweetened beverages are directly linked to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity in peer-reviewed meta-analyses published in Nature and The Lancet. The miracle berry does not cure diabetes. Let that be clear. But research from multiple institutions has found that Synsepalum dulcificum extracts improve insulin resistance in animal models. A study published in Phytotherapy Research found that miracle fruit improved insulin signaling in fructose-fed rats. The seeds contain compounds with measurable anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties, as documented in a 2022 study in Frontiers in Pharmacology. A clinical trial registered with clinicaltrials.gov, NCTO 5468411, is investigating whether miracle fruit can help diabetic patients reduce added sugar intake by making low-sugar foods more palatable. And then there are the cancer patients. Chemotherapy causes dysgeusia, a distortion of taste. In 86% of patients, food tastes metallic, rotten, or simply wrong. Patients lose appetite, they lose weight, they lose the will to eat. A Phase 3 clinical trial at the University of California. San Francisco NCTO 5273307 is testing whether miraculin can restore taste function in head and neck cancer patients undergoing radiation and chemotherapy. A 2024 study published in MedRxiv found that regular consumption of a miraculin-based food supplement improved taste, perception, and food enjoyment among cancer patients in active treatment. In March 2026, CBS Miami reported that a small red berry grown in South Florida is now being used to help cancer patients reclaim the ability to enjoy food. People magazine covered it that same week. The miracle berry is reaching hospital wards 52 years after the FDA killed it as a sweetener. And yet, as of today in the United States, you cannot sell miraculin as a food ingredient. You cannot market it as a sweetener. You cannot put it in a soft drink, a yogurt, a children's snack, or a diabetic meal replacement. The whole berry can be sold. It is, technically, a fruit, but the extracted protein miraculin remains classified as an unapproved food additive. 52 years later, the same classification still. In the European Union, miracle berry was authorized as a novel food in December 2021 under Regulation EU 2021-1974. The European Food Safety Authority reviewed the evidence and approved dried miracle berry for use in food supplements. The authorization was granted with a 5-year exclusivity period to the Spanish company Medicinal Gardens, S. In Japan, miraculin has been studied since 1968. Japanese researchers not only discovered miraculin, they have been exploring transgenic methods to produce it in tomatoes and lettuce at commercial scale. In 2015, a Forbes article covered a Harlem biotech startup hacking lettuce to produce miraculin, potentially making it cheaper and more scalable than sugar. The science exists, the regulatory pathway exists in other countries, the demand exists, the health crisis exists, the sugar industry knows all of this, and miraculin is still illegal to sell as food in America. Here's what you can do. The miracleberry plant, Synsepalum dulcificum, can be grown at home. It thrives in USDA zones 9 through 11, southern Florida, parts of Texas, Hawaii, and southern California. In cooler climates, it grows well in containers indoors, provided it receives bright, indirect light and high humidity. The plant prefers acidic soil, a pH around 4.5 to 5.8. A peat-based potting mix with perlite works well. Water with rainwater if possible, as tap water can be too alkaline. Add coffee grounds to maintain acidity. The plant is slow growing. It may take 2 to 3 years to fruit, but once established, it produces berries year-round in tropical conditions. A single miracle berry plant can be purchased online for $30 to $90. Seeds are available for under $1.10. Freeze-dried miracle berry tablets, the whole fruit, not the isolated protein, can be legally purchased in the U.S. A 10-pack costs roughly $15. A 300-count bulk order runs about $1.20 per berry. You do not need a prescription. You do not need FDA approval. You need a bush, a pot, some acidic soil, and patience. The berry is not a miracle cure. It does not treat disease. It does not replace medical advice. But it does something that no multi-billion-dollar corporation has ever offered you. It makes sour food taste sweet. With 0 sugar, 0 calories, 0 chemicals, and 0 cost once the bush is growing. West Africans have known this for centuries. A biomedical student named Robert Harvey almost gave it to America in 1974. A break-in, a reclassification, and a bankruptcy later. $150 billion industry survived. And a berry that could have changed everything became a party trick. The bush still grows. The protein still works. The FDA still says no. And the sugar industry still sleeps well at night. If this vault opened something for you, if you learned something in this video that no school, no doctor, and no food label ever told you, then share it. Not for the algorithm, for the 830 million people living with diabetes who were never told that a berry leaf from West Africa could have changed their relationship with sweetness forever. Subscribe. And the next time someone tells you there's no natural alternative to sugar, ask them one question. If the miracle berry is so harmless, why has it been illegal to sell as food for 52 years?